When you hear the name Cleopatra, what do you picture? A sultry queen draped in gold? A temptress lounging on a velvet chaise? Hollywood has painted her as the ultimate seductress, the woman who brought powerful men like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony to their knees with nothing but charm and eyeliner. But that image is a myth, and an unfair one. Cleopatra was not just a lover. She was a linguist, a philosopher, a shrewd strategist, and the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt. She ruled a fractured and battled kingdom and fought tooth and nail to keep it independent in the face of a rising Roman Empire. She was also a mother, a diplomat, and one of the most educated women of her time. So how did we go from Cleopatra the ruler to Cleopatra the sex symbol? Let's peel back the layers of fantasy and reveal the truth of the woman behind the legend. The real Cleopatra, polyglot queen and political powerhouse. Forget the Cleopatra of pop culture for a moment. The smoky eyes, the seductive whispers, the golden headdress. Let's talk about the real woman who ruled one of the most politically volatile regions in the ancient world. Cleopatra VII Philopator was born around 69 BCE in Alexandria, Egypt, to the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek ruling family that had held power in Egypt since Alexander the Great's general, Ptolemy I, took the throne nearly 3 centuries earlier. Though Greek in heritage, Cleopatra embraced Egyptian culture more than any of her recent ancestors. And she wasn't your average figurehead queen. She was an intellectual powerhouse. Cleopatra was multilingual. According to Plutarch, she spoke at least 9 languages, including Egyptian, Greek, Latin, Arabic, Hebrew, and likely some dialects of Ethiopian and Persian. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler to actually speak Egyptian. That may sound like a trivia fact, but it speaks volumes. Cleopatra wasn't just showing off. She was strategically aligning herself with the people of Egypt. Her fluency in Egyptian allowed her to present herself as Isis incarnate, a living goddess, a deeply resonant image in native Egyptian religion. This political branding was deliberate. It fused culture with monarchy, Greek lineage with Egyptian loyalty. She also studied mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and medicine. Cleopatra wasn't reading beauty scrolls, she was reading scrolls in the Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest repositories of knowledge in the ancient world. By the age of 18, Cleopatra ascended to the throne alongside her younger brother Ptolemy XIII. Her reign was immediately challenged. The Ptolemaic dynasty was infamous for its infighting. Sibling married sibling, betrayed sibling, and occasionally poisoned sibling. And Cleopatra was forced into exile in just her 3rd year of rule. But did she vanish quietly? Not a chance. She raised an army, aligned herself with Julius Caesar, and staged a dramatic re-entry into Alexandria, possibly by being smuggled into the royal palace in a rug, or a laundry bag depending on the source. This wasn't seduction, it was survival. And Caesar wasn't just a romantic interest, he was a means of regaining power. Their partnership was strategic. Through their alliance, Cleopatra crushed her brother's forces and secured her position as sole ruler of Egypt. That's not the story we hear, though, is it? Because once Cleopatra's name is mentioned alongside Caesar's, the narrative shifts from politics to pillow talk. But here's the truth. She wasn't manipulating powerful men. She was navigating a treacherous world where women in power had to play every angle to survive. A mother and monarch, the personal life they don't tell you about. Let's talk about something often ignored in Cleopatra's story, her role as a mother and monarch in a collapsing world. We know Cleopatra had 4 children, 1 with Julius Caesar and 3 with Mark Antony. But rarely do we consider what that meant for her personally, politically, and emotionally. Her first son, Caesarion, formerly named Ptolemy XV Philopator Philometor Caesar, was her child with Julius Caesar. He was seen by some as Caesar's only biological son. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Cleopatra named Caesarion co-ruler, elevating him to the status of king while he was still a child. This wasn't just about legacy, it was a brilliant political play. Caesarion's lineage tied Cleopatra's Egypt to Rome at a moment when the Roman Republic was imploding into civil war. By elevating her son, Cleopatra was asserting dynastic legitimacy in a world full of shifting alliances and assassins. Later, with Mark Antony, Cleopatra had 3 more children, the twins Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, and a younger son, Ptolemy Philadelphus. She raised them with an eye toward global strategy. Alexander Helios was given lands in Armenia and Media. Selene would eventually become queen of Mauritania. While Antony's reputation crumbled in Rome, Cleopatra was building a legacy in the East. Her donations of Alexandria in 34 BCE saw her and Antony distribute lands across the eastern Mediterranean to their children. This was a political act, but also a maternal one. She was carving out futures for her children in a world closing in on her. Yet when you watch movies or read novels, her motherhood is often erased. Why? Because a sensual icon isn't supposed to be maternal. A sex symbol isn't supposed to be strategic. But Cleopatra was both, and more. Consider this. Cleopatra ruled during a time of Roman imperialism, when even powerful women in Rome had little say in politics. In contrast, Cleopatra governed directly. She issued decrees, managed famine relief, commanded naval fleets, and oversaw currency production with her image proudly minted on coins. She did all this while raising children in a palace constantly threatened by Roman invasion. Cleopatra was a woman working double shifts, one as a queen, one as a mother. And her final years were spent trying to protect her children and her kingdom from the wrath of Octavian, later known as Augustus Caesar. When Antony and Cleopatra were defeated at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, and then both took their own lives in 30 BCE, the empire she fought so hard to preserve was absorbed into the Roman state. Caesarion was captured and executed. However, the other children survived and carried their mother's legacy to a new continent. Cleopatra's story didn't end. It evolved. The myth of the Seductress, how Rome, and later Hollywood, got it wrong. So how did Cleopatra go from scholar queen to snake-charming sex symbol? We have the Romans to thank for that. After Cleopatra's death, her story was written not by Egyptians, but by her enemies. Chief among them, Octavian, later Emperor Augustus. In his political propaganda, Cleopatra was a dangerous foreign woman who corrupted Mark Antony, turned him against Rome, and nearly seized imperial power through seduction and witchcraft. The narrative served a purpose. By vilifying Cleopatra, Octavian could frame his victory not as a civil war, but as the defeat of an evil foreign queen. The Battle of Actium became a triumph of Roman virtue over Eastern decadence. Poets like Virgil, Propertius, and Horace reinforced this image in their writings, depicting Cleopatra as a fatal queen, a crazy Egyptian, a woman who used her sexuality as a weapon. And so, the myth began. Centuries later, Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra dramatized the doomed romance, amplifying the tragedy and the seduction. By the time Elizabeth Taylor donned the famous eyeliner in 1963, the transformation was complete. Cleopatra was no longer a ruler. She was a fantasy. But the real Cleopatra was far more interesting than her caricature. She didn't conquer men with seduction. She partnered with them to survive. She didn't lounge around in luxury. She led in times of war, famine, and plague. She didn't whisper from the shadows. She stood at the front of history. And she certainly wasn't just beautiful. In fact, ancient coins with her profile suggest she wasn't conventionally attractive by modern standards. She had a strong nose, sharp features, and a pronounced chin. But ancient writers like Plutarch tell us it wasn't her looks that captivated her. It was her intelligence, voice, and charisma. She was brilliant to listen to, Plutarch writes, her tongue like an instrument of many strings. So why does the seductress myth persist? Because it's easier to sell a femme fatale than a female pharaoh. It's easier to reduce a powerful woman to her relationships than to confront the discomfort of her independent agency. And it's easier to market Cleopatra as a cautionary tale of lust than a celebration of leadership. But history deserves better, and so does she. Cleopatra the Visionary, a legacy that still echoes. Despite the myths, the truth of Cleopatra's legacy remains astonishing. She was the last in a nearly 300-year-old dynasty, the final pharaoh of Egypt, and perhaps the last ruler of the ancient world to resist Rome with both intelligence and intensity. But what made Cleopatra truly remarkable was her vision. She believed Egypt could remain independent in a world of empires. She worked to position Alexandria as a cultural and economic rival to Rome. She cultivated alliances across the Mediterranean, leveraged her knowledge of politics and philosophy, and governed in a way few women, if any, were allowed to. She didn't try to become Rome, she attempted to outplay it. Cleopatra invested in science, literature, and public infrastructure. Her court attracted thinkers, engineers, and diplomats. The Library of Alexandria, though damaged, remained a beacon of scholarship in her time. She funded astronomy, philosophy, and medicine. And in her death, she became a symbol, not of failure, but of resistance. Even in the West, her story inspired thinkers like Napoleon and Voltaire. feminist writers in the 19th and 20th centuries reclaimed Cleopatra as a symbol of intellect, autonomy, and political power. Today, historians like Dr. Sally Ann Ashton of the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge and Egyptologist Joanne Fletcher argue that we must reevaluate Cleopatra as a national leader, not a national scandal. Because while Caesar and Antony are remembered for wars, Cleopatra is remembered for love, which tells you something about how history treats powerful women. It's time we remember her not as Rome painted her, but as she was: a ruler, a reformer, a mother, a woman who dared to lead. Cleopatra was never just a seductress. She was a sovereign, a strategist, and a survivor. She ruled a divided Egypt, outmaneuvered powerful men, and fought fiercely for her people's future. She spoke multiple languages, led armies, negotiated with emperors, and raised a family under the looming shadow of Roman domination. And yet, history flattened her into eyeliner and pillow talk. Why? Because power in the hands of a woman, especially one as intelligent and ambitious as Cleopatra, has always made some people uncomfortable. But the real Cleopatra? She's far more inspiring than the myth. She reminds us that intelligence is magnetic, leadership is multidimensional, and real power isn't always loud. It's strategic, persistent, and deeply human. So the next time someone calls Cleopatra a seductress, tell them she was a queen, and she ruled like one. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about Cleopatra's life and relationships, check out our book, Cleopatra, a captivating guide to the last queen of ancient Egypt and her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.